Welcome to Senior Strategies, Tools for the Caregiver with Amy Decker and Shane Silver. Join us on each show where you're going to enjoy a lively conversation that's going to connect you to the tools and resources that you'll need to coordinate care for the seniors in your life. We are so happy that you joined us. Hi, welcome back to Senior Strategies. We are so glad that you joined us. This is actually our last show of the year.
Oh my God, I can't believe
I know.
It's the end of 2023.
End of 2023 going into 2024. So we have a fantabulous guest today that is going to impress you beyond because he's a good guy on top of everything else.
Yes.
And so we're excited that we're going to be talking to Dr. Brody, but we always like to talk about something that's been going on lately, and I've noticed that...
Before we do that...
Do it.
Before we do that...
Go.
Can you tell any of our new listeners who you are?
Oh. Good thing Dr. Brody's here. So, good idea.
Yeah, just in case there are any new listeners
you were wondering and you couldn't
there
read
today.
my name tag from there.
Yeah.
My name is Amy Decker, and I am the Director of Client Services with Senior Helpers in South Palm Beach County.
And I am Shane Silver. I am a seniors real estate specialist, and I am a caregiver.
And she keeps this show flowing.
I'm trying my best.
Flowing.
I just want everyone to know who you are.
Thank you.
Now you can continue.
Now we can continue. So we have noticed lately, and I think even possibly you personally, that a lot of our seniors are falling.
Yes.
And I have a hospice patient that she's fallen probably 4 times this week that they have found her on the floor. So it's really a giant issue because it's a crucial thing that happens. And if they hit their head, if they break their hip, hitting their head could expedite a brain injury, which could cause to have dementia of some sort. If they break their hip and they end up in surgery and they have to have
surgery
anesthesia.
And rehab, anesthesia could bring on the symptoms of
That's
Alzheimer's as well.
Right. So it's a very serious thing. And I know at times maybe caregivers don't think about it, but there's a lot of simple things that you can do. And in fact, Senior Helpers has a program that's called the Life Profile Assessment. And it's a plug and play program that you put into the computer and you literally start at the outside of the house to see how high up the step is, to see if it's at a legal level. Do they have a slippy rug at the front door?
Right.
Is it wide enough to get a wheelchair through? When you get in, is there clutter all over the floor?
Are there rugs? Are there mats? We have a mat by the front door. Whenever my dad comes, I have to lift
Get
it
the mat
up. I
up.
have to pick it up.
The biggest one is the bath mats that don't either have a rubber backing or they're just slippy slidey.
Right.
So we did a little bit of research and we were trying to find ways to keep our seniors safe and keep them from falling. And again, simple, easy things that you can do.
Yep.
So first of all, it's good to walk through the house and see if there's clutter on the floor, if there's rugs that are slipping, if there's furniture within an area where they would be walking, especially if they have a walker or a cane or a wheelchair.
They have to be able to maneuver the walker around.
Exactly. And how are they getting in and out of the house?
And in and out of the tubs or the showers is a big one
That's
too.
huge. That's huge. And a lot of people buy those because they don't want to mess up the walls in the shower or the bathroom, so they buy those suction cup, which are absolutely positive.
Grab bars
yes.
that are suction.
Yes. So we always recommend they don't do that. And yes, you've got to screw the holes in the shower, in the walls of the bathroom. They even mentioned putting those grab bars within the hallway. And it makes sense. We just met with a client this week and she is actually getting care for her husband. And she got a little bit dizzy walking down the hallway and just smashed into the side of the wall and bruised her shoulder.
Yep.
So
my dad used to do that. So when my dad was losing his balance, he would trip over his own feet. And you know, sometimes when you trip, in order to kind of not fall, you start moving your feet really fast. Well, he would do that and he was almost like running, but he couldn't stop himself. So he would purposely run into the wall.
To stop himself.
Purposely run into the wall to stop himself and then slide down the wall.
Yeah,
and say, oh no, I didn't fall. I didn't fall. That wasn't a fall.
We call that the Fred Flintstone fall because that's what Fred Flintstone would do. He'd start.
That's exactly what he would do.
And then they don't want to admit that they fall. So very often too, if there is a fall, they'll say, well, I slid down onto the floor. I didn't really fall.
Another one.
Slid.
that my dad likes to do, and he doesn't call it a fall, is he'll sit on the end of the bed, whether it's to get dressed or put his shoes on, and he doesn't have the strength and the ability to hold himself up.
His upper body core.
So he will, luckily his bed's really low, but he'll slide off the edge of the bed and end up sitting on the floor. He doesn't call that a fall.
It's a slide.
But the aides call that a fall, because then two aides have to come in and lift him back up.
Right. And that's actually one of the things that that was listed on here is, on top of getting their vision checked, regular eye exams are very, very important. Make sure their prescriptions for their glasses are updated.
Yep.
Medication management. Medications can cause dizziness. It can cause all sorts of things. If they're taking them, if forget to take them, or they get the pill box, they take too many. Medications can cause things. But what you talked about is the same thing. Physical therapy.
Yep.
If you can keep doing things to keep your body core strong, it's going to keep them from sliding off the bed and slipping onto the floor. But often too, like, they want to wear their little pajamas and little slippers. Terrible things to have on.
Oh yeah.
Especially if there's a little water spill on the floor or. So footwear is
Especially
very
if
important.
they have the tile floors that we have a lot here in South Florida.
Yeah.
The socks with the grippies, like you get the hospital socks, are going to be the safest.
And it can be anything. Again, my dad, 14 years ago, he was told to go off Coumadin for about 5 days, that his blood was too thin to go off Coumadin for 5 days. He was still working, owned a company, walked in on the tile floor, and his socks were wet from sweating. And he slipped and fell and hit his head and died of a brain bleed 11 days later.
Oh my
gosh. I mean, falls are very critical. And so if you can keep an eye on what's going on in the house, make sure that they're eating and drinking and they're hydrated.
They're hydrated.
When it's super hot here in Florida, it's very easy to become dehydrated. And in fact, we talked about those jelly.
The gel drops. The gel drops.
That they can take those, and it just gives them the hydration that they need, because very often, especially, I mean, normal aging and even early onset dementia, the first thing they forget to do is drink. Or eat. Or so poor nutrition can cause that to happen too.
Yep.
Fall devices are important. We had David Michael on, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and his company is called Personal Living Alert, and he has all sorts of things that you can do. So
watches, alert buttons, that if someone does fall and they are alone, that they could get help.
And many are afraid of the lanyards that the normal life alert has. They don't want to wear it to bed. They're afraid they're going to choke on it. So they do have little watches that look like a Fitbit, that they can hit that, they can detect it's a fall, they can call the doctor right away. So if your parents do live alone and you live out of state, or even if you are living with your loved one in the home, but you sleep in separate bedrooms, it's still good to have something.
Absolutely, and it looks just like a watch. You couldn't tell that it was a fall.
Right, right. So there's all sorts of resources out there, but just keeping an eye on their physical and mental health. Are they eating? Are they drinking? Are their prescriptions for their glasses where they're supposed to be? Are they doing things that are going to keep their life?
Keeping them active.
Right, keeping them active. And like you said, with your dad, he bends over and his upper body isn't strong.
He can't hold it. Just the other day, I was helping him get dressed, and he couldn't even sit up on the edge of the bed. He just kept falling backwards. He can't even hold himself up.
And then sometimes they get prideful, so they don't think that physical therapy is going to fix that, and so they don't want to do that.
And they don't want to admit that they fell. So he'll run into the wall or he'll slide off the bed, and he doesn't consider that falling. But should he slide onto the floor or run into the wall and break a hip, we all know that once you break a hip and you have surgery and then rehab, that sometimes is the beginning of the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that was even something our guest, Dr. Brody, talked about before the show, that a lot of times when people break a hip, especially if they're at a certain age or their health is in a certain way, sometimes they don't even make it home from the hospital after the surgery. So
it's major. It's major.
A fall is very big. So that was one of the things that we wanted to discuss. But we are excited that we're going to be starting a new year. We are excited that we've been doing this since May. And
it's been a great year. We've had some amazing guests, some great shows. And we've had some great questions and issues that were brought to us by listeners and viewers. So keep them coming. Again, please remember that if you're dealing with an issue or a concern, you're not alone. That's why we're here. We did this to show you that we know that being a caregiver could be lonely and isolating, but you're not alone. We have resources. And if you're dealing with an issue and you want us to address it on one of our episodes, please, you can call us or email us and we'll get you that information. Or if you know of a resource that we haven't spoken about yet, please also reach out as well. And the best way to reach us by phone
is 561-800-6654, or you can email us
at seniorstrategies.pb@gmail.com.
But you can always get us on Facebook,
Instagram, YouTube as well.
So all of those ways. And this Thursday at 3 o'clock at Allegro of Boynton Beach, which is on Hagen Ranch Road, we are having our caregiver support group. So we'd love for you to join us. If you need to bring your loved one with you, feel free to do that. We Senior Helpers offers respite care.
And we have a great group of regulars that come in, and we always have people that come in and out. We have a lot of first timers. You don't have to live there. You can be anywhere in the area. It's really great to connect with other people who are in your shoes and caring for their loved ones, see what tips and tricks they've learned that help them.
Right. And the nice thing is that the event is at 3 o'clock. So after an hour at 4 o'clock is when they have their happy hour at Allegro at 4 o'clock. So very often they'll get together with those and go have happy hour with their group. So
Which
it's
is really
a
nice.
lot of fun.
Really nice.
But yeah, so we're going to talk to Dr. Brody coming up. And after this commercial break, join us back so Dr. Brody can enlighten you with all the things that he knows about what's going on with the brain and brain health.
See you after the break.
Welcome to Allegro Boynton Beach, the epitome of luxury senior living. Discover a lifestyle free from maintenance worries, or experience gentle support tailored to your daily needs. Choose from our exclusive offerings of independent living, assisted living, and memory care, each designed to provide a personalized experience of utmost comfort and care. Indulge in a maintenance-free retirement or embrace the support you deserve. Surrounded by the finest amenities and compassionate staff. At Allegro Boynton Beach, luxury meets a vibrant community where every moment is filled with joy, purpose, and peace of mind. Experience luxury senior living at its finest. Contact us today to schedule your visit and discover the unmatched lifestyle awaiting you at Allegro Boynton Beach.
About 60 million baby boomers refuse to leave a financial burden on their loved ones, but 70% of them have unsuitable life insurance or are unaware that it may expire. With final expenses significantly rising, don't leave your family unprotected. If you have an old policy or purchased guaranteed coverage, don't take any risks. Gain peace of mind with a policy review. Mention Senior Strategies and it's free. Call Pivotal Life today at 561-412-5500. That's 561-412-5500. Because family and legacy are worth protecting.
You love your mom and dad, and they've always been there for you, always taken care of you. But now they could use a hand, and sometimes more help than you can provide. Thankfully, they're Senior Helpers, experts in Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's care. We can help you transition from a hospital stay to home, or just help your loved one with assistance with their everyday needs. Visit seniorhelpers.com to learn more. Discover why Senior Helpers is senior care, only better.
Are you considering selling your home? Are you considering downsizing? Are you considering a transition to an independent or assisted living community? Are you considering moving to be closer to your family? Do you need a home more conducive to aging in place? If so, you want to talk to Shane Silver, co-host of Senior Strategies and Senior Real Estate Specialist. Shane and her real estate team are extremely knowledgeable and experienced when it comes to helping seniors and their families make life's important transitions. Shane will guide you every step of the way, making the transition as stress-free as possible. To schedule a no-obligation consultation, call 561-735-3030.
Welcome back to Senior Strategies with Amy and Shane. Coming up next are more tools and resources you will need to make your journey of caregiving a little easier. For more information or to be a guest on the show, please contact us at 561-800-6654. And now, on with the show.
Hi, welcome back to Senior Strategies, and we are really excited about our guest today. So we are going to introduce Dr. Mark Brody. And we want to know who, what, where, when, and why. All about you, because you're the good guy.
In that order?
In that order. That's
Tell
right.
us how it happened. Tell
Yes.
us how it started.
Okay, well, I'm a neurologist. That's not a urologist, it's the other end. I'm a stroke neurocritical care neurologist by training, and I just kind of drifted into vascular dementia because I'm a stroke guy, and that led to Alzheimer's. And I was treating people, and then I started doing research because that was my background in academics. And then things went crazy because as a stroke guy, whatever disease you're looking after, if you're a fisherman, you go to a stocked pond. So for stroke and Alzheimer's, this is a very stocked pond. Mm-hmm. And so we started doing Alzheimer's research just over 18 years ago, and then in Delray. And then we got a big center there, it's 11,000 square feet, and then we have another one in Stewart. And basically we do pharmaceutical sponsored clinical research, trying new drugs to see if we can make some breakthroughs in slowing the disease down. And of course the holy grail would be, can we come up with a cure? Now our version of a cure would be to find people who are at risk that don't have symptoms, and we would treat them at that point, and they'll never know what they missed.
So you'd actually be promoting it. I mean, not promoting it.
Preventing.
You would be preventing it. See, maybe I need those drugs. You'd be preventing it versus keeping it from progressing.
I'll put you on a list.
Put me on the list.
Me too. Me too. I need to be on that list.
You guys may have heard that we have our first FDA-approved treatment for early Alzheimer's.
Yep.
Yes.
That Medicare actually pays for now. And we started out doing the phase 1 research, a company called ASI along with Biogen. And we started phase 1 about 8 years ago.
Wow.
So that's first exposure in man for the people who have that disease. And then it progresses to phase 2 and then phase 3, which was a big trial with thousands of people. And it was a positive trial. It slowed the rate of decline by about 30%.
Wow, that's huge.
And what's the
That's
ratio
huge.
between men and women for that study?
There was more men than women in that trial, although there's a higher incidence of women than men for the disease. And then at one point we thought it was because women live longer, but there's some contribution to lack of estrogen.
Oh,
Wow.
And so they're actually doing studies where you use estrogen patches.
really?
Yeah, we don't have results yet.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
So this big breakthrough is that if we get people early, the earlier the better, because there are two hallmarks of the disease, two abnormal proteins, amyloid and tau, T-A-U.
Yep.
And so the amyloid forms outside the brain cells and melts the connections, and the tau forms right in the brain cell, is toxic, literally blows a hole in the brain cell, leaks out, and that's how the disease spreads throughout the brain.
Wow.
So this treatment is an engineered antibody that's directed at the toxic amyloid. It's given intravenously every 2 weeks. And so this has been a breakthrough if we get people early. It's not a cure, but the idea
So is that how it pockets holes then? Because I know one of the Teepa Snow videos that I show a lot of is the brain, here's a healthy brain of a 90-year-old, then here's one that's not healthy. The one that's not healthy has got holes pocketed through it. So is that what's causing the holes?
Yeah, the amyloid and the tau are toxic, and it literally causes damage to the brain and shrinkage of the brain. And so it does cause divots, because there's a lot of golfers here.
Awesome.
Interesting. So you started the study, you said
8 years ago.
That particular study
Was 8 years ago.
Literally done probably 80 to 100 trials over the 18
Wow.
years in Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And so we had a drug that Biogen first put out that actually was FDA approved provisionally, but never got to the point where it got formal approval that Medicare would pay for.
right.
And so now there's a number of other companies in the queue. Lilly's got a drug that'll go to the FDA table probably in the first quarter. That also looks very promising.
Good.
And we did that research from phase 1. So we've been actually really at the start for a lot of these trials that have now progressed to approval. There's been a lot of disappointment over the years.
Oh, I'm
Really
sure.
on the forefront of kind of all these studies that are going on.
Yeah.
What's
So
the pattern? Are you seeing a pattern of specific things? Like we talked about men and women. Do you see a pattern of lifestyle? Or so as you're doing the studies, what are you finding within your studies as far as?
Well, and you can get this book that I wrote at our website, brainmattersresearch.com. I wrote a book called Brain Matters, and it's the prevention of aging, stroke, and Alzheimer's. So there's a lot of common modifiable risk factors like smoking,
Stress.
Yeah.
stress, but smoking, hypertension, diabetes, and then Alzheimer's, head injury, hyperlipidemia. So those are all things that are risk factors for stroke, for premature aging, and for Alzheimer's. So those are things we see. Of course, family history, and there's now over 30 genes that put people at increased risk, but
Wow.
there's one in particular, the ApoE4 gene. And so that's a good screen for people who develop very early Alzheimer's, that they're going to progress. That's mild cognitive impairment to early Alzheimer's.
And is that, and then Shane took the, What
I did the very, very first appointment. I had some blood work done, and I am a carrier of that ApoE.
So speaking of blood work, there is a company called C2N that's also going to the FDA probably in the first quarter that has a blood test for the abnormal proteins in the brain for Alzheimer's, and it has a concordance rate of about 90% compared to actually looking at spinal fluid or amyloid PET scans of the brain.
Wow.
So a PET scan stands for positron emission transaxial tomography. If you say that really fast, nobody gives you anything. In English, it means we give a small tracer IV intravenously, and it goes up and gloms onto the amyloid in the brain, and we take the picture and it lights up like light bulbs. And when you have a certain amount of amyloid and you've ruled everything else out that's fixable, reversible, then that confirms the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and that's the target we're going after, trying to dissolve the amyloid. So when we give this engineered antibody to amyloid, we give it intravenously, it goes up into the brain, gloms onto the amyloid, and then the immune system melts it, and it's cleared.
And
So
is that covered by insurance to have that?
It is that,
Oh,
that particular
nice.
company, that is
Nice.
for early disease.
For the blood work?
Medicare does pay for it. The blood work isn't covered till Medicare formally approves it. So,
Okay. So, but
but
what
we
if,
use it in research commonly now.
so what if someone like me, who I'm old, but I'm not on Medicare, wanted to be tested to see if they were a carrier or to see if they had the amyloid buildup in the brain, wanted to have a PET scan. So would that all just be self-pay? Regular?
Right now.
Right now.
For your age group, yes.
And then here's the other question. So if you do go for the test and it all comes back positive and it shows that you absolutely have the gene, you have early onset, how does that affect your insurances down the road? Because now you have a
Pre-existing condition.
condition and now you want to get life insurance or you want to get
Different health insurance.
different
which
health insurance
companies
Do you have to
disclose?
That's a good question. In research, there's a Privacy Act. So insurance companies, life insurance companies get no access to anything that's done in a clinical research study. Once you go see a physician and you're getting a treatment that Medicare pays for, it becomes part of your medical record. So I'm not sure what the legal issues are there, but you know, it can be discovered.
Because
But
we
listen-
thought about that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions we had.
Well, let me just say this. People have this misconception that Alzheimer's is a memory disease. It is not. It is organ failure. just like people get congestive heart failure or liver failure, or kidney failure. This is brain failure. It starts off with memory problems, but then the whole brain degenerates. And for about 85 to 90% of people, from the time of diagnosis, 8 to 10 years down the road, they're dead. So this is a term, progressive neurodegenerative disease, that's fatal. So the idea is, can we give people 3 more good years and slow down the rate of progression?
Right.
And we're there now.
And because the time that the diagnosis sets in, they could have already had it 10,
Oh, yeah.
15 previous before they even
Yeah.
before they even recognized
So the disease
it.
starts at least 10 to 15 years before people get symptoms. So what we need to do when we're talking about prevention, you can read the book, not a plug, but you can read the book.
Say the name of the book again.
Brain Matters.
Okay, and how would we find that book?
I have no idea.
So would you
can
go to your website?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can Google it.
Okay.
You can
And
Google.
it's on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
You've heard of Amazon.
We've heard of
Yes.
Amazon.
And Googling.
And
You've heard of
Googling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they wanted to become part of your research study, how would they do that? Is there a number that they can call? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah. So you can go to brainmattersresearch.com, or you can call 561-374-8461. Let me do my radio voice. Once again, 561-374-8461.
Good.
Love it.
Good.
So what we do free screens, which is almost at no cost. And what that means is you come in, hopefully with a family member, a potential study partner, somebody who can give us some
Insight.
corroborative history. And the 90 minutes, we put you through some very basic tests and ask some medical questions. And at the end, we can tell you this may be in the realm of normal brain aging, or this is something to be concerned about, and we have to go we recommend you go the next step. So let me just say, when we see people and they may have some memory problems or some difficulty with cognition, they can't find their car, they're having trouble with words and so on, 15 to 20% of people that I see have fixable, reversible things. You mentioned medication. Sometimes their thyroid is out of whack, their B12, their electrolytes. Medications interact with each other. They've had a fall, they're depressed. Those are all things that are potentially fixable. So we're not
Like even a UTI.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
UTI can make you completely different.
You could show the symptoms
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
And you know,
similar.
if you have a UTI, you're in trouble. Do I get anything for that one? A little bit. So listen, here's the thing. We're not looking for trouble. We're looking
Right.
for something fixable.
Right,
Right.
right.
But if we don't find something fixable, we're trying to just see, is there medication you should be on? Is there a study? Or is this new treatment? Are you a candidate for that?
Right.
So when you come, you can actually get a copy of the book. You can get a free assessment, and we can tell you what we think is going on. And if you come in and you refer a friend, we can actually give you a little coupon for $25.
So she and
Very
I might
nice.
come together and
Yeah.
we'll refer each other.
Really?
Because we've been thinking about doing that anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to.
There goes a movie, but no popcorn.
There's no popcorn or a trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So if you call, how soon can you get in for the study? Like, what sort of a schedule are you looking at?
Probably within a week or so.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, because we always have a lot of studies going, and probably what you want to know before everybody gets too excited is this drug that's been approved has potential side effects.
Yes.
what?
Small
And
number
those-
of people can get swelling in the brain or bleeding in the brain,
Oh.
but so of the people that we treat, 80% don't have any problem. 20% of people can have swelling or bleeding, but 80% of those people have no symptoms. But 20% of the 20% can have some symptoms, and usually we just hold the medicine and everything resolves. So the FDA you don't get to the point where you get approval unless basic safety
Right.
milestones are met.
Because I think you talked about that too, didn't you?
Yeah, there are. I mean, there are definitely.
But you
know,
get a buffer when you
things
have a
to weigh.
disease where everybody gets worse and everybody dies.
Right.
Right. You know, there's definitely some side effects that people need to consider, and it's a long study, and it's IV medication, correct?
Well, for the treatment is
Right.
Intravenous every 2 weeks, and right now it's indefinitely. Now we found out that if you give the medication sub-Q, like an insulin shot, it's just as effective. We thought maybe it would be less in the way of side effects. Those studies are ongoing. The Lilly drug, which is in that same family of an engineered antibody directed at amyloid, its claim to fame would be that you would treat people for 12 to 18 months to the point where there's no detectable amyloid, and then you would stop. And you would wait about 2 years, 2 to 2.5 years, till it reaccumulates before you'd start treatment again. So that way there'd be some sort of fixed time frame.
Right.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah,
It's a lot to consider.
It is a lot to consider, and I think there's a handful of people that would rather not know and have to go through the study because they're afraid of the outcome, and there's a lot that would rather know.
Yeah.
So they can have the study.
There was a time when it was hard to get people in studies because, for that reason. They didn't want to know, and they didn't think there was anything to do about it anyway. And to some degree that was true, but there's never anything to do about it until there's something to do about it. And the only way we get there is doing research. So in the old days, you guys are too young for the old days, but in the old days,
I love
when
that.
I was a young stroke doctor, we didn't have a good way to treat people with acute strokes. And then part of the research I was involved with was TPA, this blood clot dissolver. And so now if you have a stroke in the first few hours, we can give you this blood clot dissolver and even root through the remnant of the clot. And a lot of times people go home within 2 or 3 days
I've
and
heard
they
of that.
never know what they missed.
Wow. Wow.
So now we're at the stage where
Wow.
we've made the first kind of breakthrough with Alzheimer's. It's not done, right? We're still working on other drugs that affect tau. We're going to have combination trials. We're going to have these preclinical before you get the symptom trials. But we're making some real major strides.
That's great. And I love that you've got the background with stroke, because that's a whole nother thing. I mean, people just and basically that's a blood clot to the brain. So again, with that, it's your health, it's your way of life.
There's two kinds of strokes. 70% are the blood clots in the arteries. The other is frank bleeding in the brain.
Okay.
So like your dad fell, and he probably had a subdural hematoma.
Whatever he had, he didn't speak like full sentences all of a sudden. Yeah, it was like he had a stroke, but it was his brain bleed. So that probably gave him the symptoms of a stroke.
Puts you at a higher risk for Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
A history of stroke. So listen, generally speaking, it's good to stay away from doctors and hospitals.
Yeah.
Except when you're concerned that you might have the beginnings of something like Alzheimer's. So it'd be nice to come in and get evaluated and say, you know what, this is something fixable. We're going to look into it and then fix it.
And here's a far-fetched question.
And
get a chance for a treatment.
And always.
And a free book.
And as always, probably the
not so
sooner you catch it and the sooner you can get on these medications, the better.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. It's really about synaptic integrity. So it's about how many connections, and you have about 100 billion brain cells and about 100 trillion connections.
Wow.
And then, of course, you get married and you have kids, and it's all downhill.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Yep.
Bad.
Well, Amy told me when I started with my brain malfunctioning that if you think of your brain, and I tell this to everybody, like a computer. You know when you're surfing the web and you have all your different tabs open?
You're right.
That you can only handle what,
5 to 8 tabs. 5 to
one
8
time?
tabs. So that would be, for instance, the phone rings, you answer the phone, it's your friend. She tells you to meet at the mall, and you're going to bring pictures for the trip that you just took, but it's cold out, so don't forget to wear your coat. You're going to go to the chocolate store, and then afterwards you're going to call your other friend. Now those tabs are all, you've used up all your tabs. All your tabs.
Yeah,
so
I'm
now
way
you hang
past
up,
8. I'm
you
way
hang up the
past
phone,
8.
and now you have no clue why you're in the kitchen, how you got there, or what's going on, and that is what it is.
And for a lot of people that are caregivers, I mean, we talk about this before, most of our family caregivers work a full-time job or part-time at least.
Yeah.
So you have a full-time job.
Right.
You have the sandwich generation like me who has children or spouses. Now you're caring for your parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, right? So that, and those three
And then you start a radio
tasks,
television program.
right? And then we do that.
So then we have
and
4
all the
full-time
things
jobs.
that go around
Right,
with that, right?
right.
So not just our kids,
Right.
but I got to worry about my kids at school and my kids after school activities and my husband's doctor's appointment, and I got to work. I run a business. I got to
Right.
work about my business.
But P.S., that's normal aging. When you get on the phone, you've only got 5 to 8 windows open on there, and you forget because you don't. That's normal
I
aging.
tell people
Okay,
all the time, if
let's-
I don't
Or
write
maybe
it down,
Dr. Brody
Let me
wants to
interject a little
go
bit.
ahead. You are our guest.
you are the brain expert, right? Who are we?
I guess you forgot. So, normal brain aging. So here's you asked me to think about what questions do people ask. How can you tell the difference between normal brain aging and something else? So normal brain aging, you can get what we call benign forgetfulness. You go into a room, you forget why you went there, you can't remember somebody's name, but it comes to you later. And the rate of processing of your brain slows down a little bit, but everything works. So that's normal brain aging. So one step further is mild cognitive impairment. That means you do have trouble with your short-term memory. You may have trouble with visual spatial recognition, where do you leave my car, calculations, word finding, maybe moody, changes in behavior, but you're completely functional, you can do everything you want.
So wait a minute. You
Hold
said
it,
you
unless
could.
you're married,
You go
'cause
out
nobody
and you
gets to do
can't
it.
find your car. Did you say that was one of them?
Yeah.
Then I'm
Word
in
find
huge
is my
trouble.
issue.
I mean, you find it
Word find.
eventually because
I do the beep, 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 and still go to the wrong car and try to open the wrong car.
okay, that's a different disease.
So
That's totally different.
That's a different problem.
Mine is the word find all the time.
Yeah.
I can't think of the friggin' word.
yeah.
Right.
But I do think that that's normal, right?
Well, it depends on how prevalent it is and how much of a problem. Because you're very young. I mean, I've got shoes older than you. So your word finding should be pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's something to follow. That's why when you come in and see us at Brain Matters Research, and the number happens to be 561-374-8461, and we do an assessment and we do some basic psychometrics, then we can say, this is how you were doing then, and then we're going to recheck you in 6 months to a year and see if things have changed.
So what are things then that we or our listeners should be concerned about? So if it's beep to the car, you get to the wrong car, you're trying to open it, you can't think of a word.
Right.
What would be something that would be a warning sign to say, okay, you need to
I got to go
looked-
get checked.
Right. So
Give us a couple of
a
those.
lot of people are self-aware that they're having trouble, and they may have a family history, and so that prompts them to come in and get checked. More commonly is they don't think they have a problem, but their family says there's something wrong with dad.
It's time.
Right, and he's not acting the right way. He's bouncing checks. I was driving with him the other day. He's cutting people off. He doesn't stop at yield signs. He shouldn't be out there. He can't drive with the kids. We need to take him somewhere and get checked. So in the old days, Betty and Jack would go to their primary care doctor. Betty would say, Jack's having some trouble with his memory. He would say, I'm not having any more trouble than anybody else in my complex, which may be true. I just haven't seen the other people in their complex. Now, Jack's 82, Betty's 78, child bride. And in the old days, which was when I was kind of at the peak of my practice, most of the practitioners, 45% of the people in Palm Beach County were over 50. So they would say, Betty, what do you expect? He's 82. Or write out a prescription for Aricept, and they would say, what's this for? You just give it a try. So they go to the pharmacy. Jack would say, what's this for? And he'd go, Alzheimer's. And that's the first time he's heard the word. Now the new generation is getting an education where they know that they need to do an in-depth investigation and try to find out what's going on, because there's a treatment. Before, people would go, there's nothing to do about it anyway, so I'm not going to go crazy.
Yeah, you're
Right.
senile, so
Right.
just get on the medication.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of research facilities in Palm Beach County and in South Florida. It's really ground zero for Alzheimer's, and we're making some real progress. So I urge people, if they feel an inkling that they want to find out or their family is concerned, come in for a free assessment.
I think it's great. And I think we're going to take a little commercial break here. When we come back, we can talk more about maybe some phenomenal stories that you have of some of your best cases. Things
Some
that
of
made
your
you laugh.
favorite patients.
Yeah, something that made you laugh or made you cry or both. So come back, join us.
Join us after the commercial break.
About 60 million baby boomers refuse to leave a financial burden on their loved ones. But 70% of them have unsuitable life insurance or are unaware that it may expire. With final expenses significantly rising, don't leave your family unprotected. If you have an old policy or purchased guaranteed coverage, don't take any risks. Gain peace of mind with a policy review. Mention Senior Strategies and it's free. Call Pivotal Life today at 561-412-5500. That's 561-412-5500, because family and legacy are worth protecting.
Welcome to Allegro Boynton Beach, the epitome of luxury senior living. Discover a lifestyle free from maintenance worries, or experience gentle support tailored to your daily needs. Choose from our exclusive offerings of independent living, assisted living, and memory care, each designed to provide a personalized experience of utmost comfort and care. Indulge in a maintenance-free retirement or embrace the support you deserve. Surrounded by the finest amenities and compassionate staff. At Allegro Boynton Beach, luxury meets a vibrant community where every moment is filled with joy, purpose, and peace of mind. Experience luxury senior living at its finest. Contact us today to schedule your visit and discover the unmatched lifestyle awaiting you at Allegro Boynton Beach.
You love your mom and dad, and they've always been there for you, always taken care of you. But now they could use a hand, and sometimes more help than you can provide. Thankfully, there's Senior Helpers, experts in Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's care. We can help you transition from a hospital stay to home, or just help your loved one with assistance with their everyday needs. Visit seniorhelpers.com to learn more. Discover why Senior Helpers is senior care, only better.
Are you considering selling your home? Are you considering downsizing? Are you considering a transition to an independent or assisted living community? Are you considering moving to be closer to your family? Do you need a home more conducive to aging in place? If so, you want to talk to Shane Silver, co-host of Senior Strategies and Senior Real Estate Specialist. Shane and her real estate team are extremely knowledgeable and experienced when it comes to helping seniors and their families make life's important transitions. Shane will guide you every step of the way, making the transition as stress-free as possible. To schedule a no-obligation consultation, call 561-735-3030.
Welcome back to Senior Strategies with Amy and Shane. Coming up next are more tools and resources you will need to make your journey of caregiving a little easier. For more information or to be a guest on the show, please contact us at 561-800-6654. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to Senior Strategies with Amy and Shane. We are talking with Dr. Brody from Brain Research Matters. And I have a question. What would you say is your favorite part of what you do and the research you do and the patients that you see?
Well, I'm glad we're back after that short commercial break. So, Tequesta, who you know, is our outreach person
Very
at Brain
well.
Matters Research.
She's a little dynamo.
And I poached her from Alzheimer's Association. She has me go out and give a lot of talks. So she took me to a Baptist church, an African-American Baptist church.
Aw.
And I started out when I was at UCLA and I did some stand-up. So I tell jokes. And she said, no jokes. So I stand up there
And told
at
a
the
joke
pulpit,
anyway.
and I look down at the people and I say, and I smile at the question, I go, so Moses goes up to the mount. She's going, no, don't do it. I go, so Moses goes up to the mount and he comes down with the tablets and he stands in front of everybody and he says, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is I got him down to 10. The bad news is adultery's still in. And those ladies in the front row
Loved
had
it.
best guilty laughs.
Oh, that's funny.
So I get to
Aw.
do multiple small gigs
That's
all day
nice.
long.
That's awesome.
And
so
it makes a difference. It truly does. It gets people together and they can think about something else other than growing old. And you make
I
them
would
laugh.
basically say that we explain things in English at Brain Matters Research.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the starch white coat and the monotone voice.
Mm-hmm.
We talk to people in English and explain things.
Nice.
And for some of these studies, the people will look at me and go, so how does this drug work?
Right.
And I will look at them and go, I have no idea.
That's
I thought
why you're
you
in the
knew."
study. You're going to tell me after you
Right.
take it for a
Yes.
few weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
A sense of humor gets people a long ways, and as caregivers,
Yes.
people out there might not know, but 50% of the caregivers die before the patient.
Yep,
It's
we
that's
do.
graceful.
We do discuss
So
that.
support, getting, what I find is sometimes docs who are dealing with dementia patients, Alzheimer's being the most common type of dementia, don't talk to the patient anymore. They talk to the caregivers
Right.
like they're not there.
Right.
So we take great pains in making sure that we talk to the patient. Which
And it
seems-
shows respect. It just shows respect.
was-
I know when I sit with families to discuss care, and recently it was care for the dad, and the mom was there, and the daughter was there, and the other daughter was there, and I always ask questions to the person that I'm there for. And mom always, which I'm sure I would do the same thing with my husband, but the
Answers.
wife always barks out the answer before, and I won't even acknowledge it. I let that person, you speak. What's your weight? How tall are you? Oh, you are not.
Yep.
You're not 5 foot. But it gives them the respect that because they already know there's something going on.
That's
obviously
one of the things that bothered my mom most when she was at that point where she had good days and bad days, and she knew she had good days and bad days. One of the things that she would obsess about was if I was talking to my father, and it could be about the weather, she always thought we were talking about
her. Yeah.
She always said, don't talk about me when I'm not here.
Right.
Don't talk about me when.
Right.
Meanwhile, she's in the room and we're talking about the weather, but she would obsess about that.
So by the time they come to your environment, they already know there's something going on. So the fact that you can give them a little bit of undivided
Actually,
attention.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with me. I don't know why I'm here. And so basically when you're doing research, even if you're just seeing people clinically and their research isn't in the cards, is you got to read the room. Right? Because everybody's different. There's
Right.
you're always talking to two people. And in the old days when I did regular neurology, I give them my spiel, that's a very technical term, and then I'd be talking to them and they go, I don't know. And I said, well, you know what? You don't have to do anything you don't want. And I'd get up and I'd say, you know what? I've got a list of 3 other neurologists. I'm happy to have you see them. And nobody left. They always want to stay with the person who's willing to let them go.
Right. Right.
And it's like anything else, when you get a diagnosis, sometimes when you hear those words, you don't always hear what comes after it, right?
Right.
You don't hear the next part. So that's why it's so important to have someone with you, but to have someone who understands that and to have a doctor who understands that. and
Let
can
me
give
tell you what
time.
we do to that end. So we have this big monitor at the end of the desk, and when we're talking, we talk about what is Alzheimer's and we show them basic pictures, and then what is this study about, and we show you what the drugs, the purported mechanism, how it works, and where they're at in their scheme of their disease.
Yep.
And then we print that
Nice.
and give it to the person in a little file folder with their name on it, because there's a lot of deer in the headlights. What
Oh,
did he
yeah.
say? I don't remember.
They can go home and digest it.
Right.
Yeah. And we talk to a lot of family members, because, you know, a lot of people have family members in New York, you know, it's a small hamlet in the Northeast, New Jersey, Connecticut, and so on. And they have a lot of family members who are in the medical field. So I said, fine, have them call me. Let's go over things. And going in clinical research is a choice.
Right.
Nobody is pushed into clinical research.
Right.
If you want to come in, fine. If at any point when you come in a study, if you want to stop for any reason, we stop. These are FDA regulations. It's a friendly place to come. And I'm not there all the time, so you won't hear the bad jokes, right? Which is probably a good thing,
But you'll get a free book.
but you'll get a free book.
But I want to say too, one of the reasons that not only did I want to know when I went for the first level of the test, not only did I want to know, but I see what my mom goes through, and I see what other caregivers like me go through, especially that sandwich generation. And I just felt like if I could do something to give back, kind of like what our show, right? If I
Yep.
can provide people with the resources that have helped me on my journey, so that someone doesn't have to start from scratch, if I could somehow give back so that we can further that research, that was a big impetus for me
And then our
doing
show
it.
then also progressed into a support group, because then we realized for those that are caring, many of them are afraid to ask for help, or if they are at home with the person that they're caring for, they can't always take them with them. So if they want to go
Right.
to a support group, so that's why we established
The
then how
respite.
great it is to have a support group where all of you can learn that you're all going through it together, and then you offer respite, so they've got
know,
somebody
and-
there.
So when we go to meetings, the Alzheimer's researchers, it turns out on basically a straw poll, 70% of us have first-degree relatives who have Alzheimer's. My dad had Alzheimer's, and I couldn't get him in a study. He had a pacemaker, he was on a blood thinner, he didn't qualify, and I'd go see him, and at the end, he didn't recognize me at first. And then it'd dawn on him who I was, and he'd go, "Mark, why haven't you come up with anything yet?" And I said, I'm working on it.
I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
And I think that's one of the hard parts too. We have a client that we care for in an assisted living in memory care, and her son is just stellar. He takes such good care of her. Whatever her needs are, he's got at Amazon there, and he just flew in last week and sat down with her, and she didn't know who he was, and she refused to speak to him, and he had a really tough time with that. So he had the caregiver come over. She wouldn't even look at him. She had absolutely no idea who that was. And then the caregiver just very slowly started talking, started using his name. So then she
Right.
recognized the name, and then she started getting it, but she, even for the rest of the trip, she just had a hard time. And
Yeah.
he really, and I think you think, oh, I'm prepared for that. And I know
You
that's
are
going to,
never
you're
prepared
never
for
prepared
that.
for that. It's
Right.
so tough.
Never prepared
It's
for
so
that.
tough.
Yeah.
So
that's
I'm sure you
heartbreaking.
see all sorts of emotions. First of all, somebody's diagnosed, now they know what they're heading into. Then you've got the families
Listen,
that are,
We're very careful about not saying or giving a diagnosis till we've crossed all the T's
Established
and
it.
dotted all
Right.
the I's. It's not a casual diagnosis to make. So people deserve a thorough workup. And when people come see me and they say, somebody diagnosed me with Alzheimer's, I say, it's not that I don't believe anybody else, I just don't believe anybody else. Let's
right,
dig in
right.
and find
Well,
out.
It's you know, hearing any diagnosis sends you down this path,
Right.
Sends you
Right.
on this journey. So I appreciate that. We're not throwing these terms around lightly, and we're not throwing these diagnoses around lightly. They could be scary for the family, for the individual.
Yeah. And everybody handles that in a different way. They handle that emotion in a different way. So there's going to probably be tears or anger or, questions.
Fear.
Denial.
Fear,
Yeah.
denial.
And I'm sure you have seen all of those issues.
Yeah.
So we applaud you. I think what you do is wonderful. And I think that the fact that you're
You
giving.
haven't heard my jokes.
Go ahead. All right.
So-
Give us one.
Oh, okay. So this guy goes to a psychiatrist for an evaluation. When he goes in the interview room, the only thing he's wearing is cellophane underwear. So at the end of the interview, he turns to the psychiatrist and he says, "So doc, what do you think's wrong with me?" Psychiatrist looks down and says, you know what, I'm not exactly sure, but I can clearly see your nuts. Can you put that on there? Or is it? Yes.
I love it. We have to give humor to this. We have to
you
give
do,
humor
and
to
I think
this.
that's one of the things that we talk about with caregivers. They get so burned out,
Yep.
and they get so alone that if you don't have a moment to make something funny and laugh about it, then the option is to cry about it or to
Yep.
stress out.
Yep.
Laughter is the best medicine. Who wrote that book? Like,
I did.
did you write that book?
No.
He did. He did.
But it truly is a good thing to do, and we're so happy to
Yes.
have this show.
We
to
are
be
so
able to
happy.
introduce these.
Dr. Brody, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our viewers. We are wrapping up our last show
For
our
2023.
last episode of 2023. Thank you, Amy, for
Thank
taking
you,
this journey with
Shane.
me.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
2024 is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to be talking about that on the next show.
So thank you to all our supporters, all of you out there that are listening, all of our guests we've had this year. Thank you, and wishing everyone the best health, happiness, and lots of laughter in 2024.
Thank you for joining us today on Senior Strategies. We hope that you found the tools and the strategies that we offered you beneficial for your journey as a caregiver. We want you to leave today feeling empowered and supported.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for upcoming shows and events. For more information, to schedule a consultation, or to join a support group, please contact us at 561-800-6654.
And remember the strategies
And tools you can use
to make your journey easier.